The lights do not have to stay off for very long before modern civilization begins to reveal how little of it actually functions without electricity. The most dangerous moment is not the dramatic instant when entire cities suddenly go dark. It is the quiet hour afterward, when millions of people still assume someone else is fixing the problem. Emergency systems are still running on backup power. Refrigerators remain cold. Water continues flowing from taps. And mobile phones still show enough battery to create the illusion that nothing fundamental has changed. This is the window where almost every critical survival decision is made, often without anyone realizing it. Human psychology consistently underestimates slow-moving disasters because the brain evolved to recognize immediate physical threats rather than cascading infrastructure failures. A blackout is therefore not simply the absence of light. It is the gradual removal of thousands of invisible services that have always existed in the background. Electricity powers communication, transportation, fuel distribution, sanitation, refrigeration, medical logistics, banking, manufacturing, and water treatment. Most of these systems possess temporary resilience through batteries, generators, and stored pressure, but nearly all have limits measured in hours or days rather than weeks. Emergency management experts often describe infrastructure as an interconnected network instead of independent systems, because failure rarely remains isolated. One interruption increases stress on another until multiple failures begin reinforcing one another. This cascading effect explains why preparedness professionals focus less on the original cause of a blackout and more on the predictable sequence that follows, regardless of whether the trigger was severe weather, equipment failure, cyber disruption, geomagnetic disturbance, or physical damage to transmission infrastructure. One of the greatest misunderstandings surrounding blackout preparedness is the belief that survival begins when shelves are already empty and emergency vehicles dominate the streets. In reality, survival begins much earlier, during the period when everything still appears mostly functional. Scientific studies of disaster behavior repeatedly demonstrate that the majority of people delay protective action because normal routines create a powerful expectation that normal conditions will soon return. Psychologists refer to this tendency as normalcy bias. It causes individuals to interpret warning signs through the lens of everyday experience rather than objective probability. If the power has returned after previous outages within a few hours, the brain automatically assumes this outage belongs to the same category until overwhelming evidence forces a different conclusion. Unfortunately, infrastructure failures do not announce their duration. The first hour of a 12-hour outage and the first hour of a 3-week outage can appear nearly identical from inside a home. The difference lies not in visible conditions, but in hidden engineering realities occurring across electrical grids, substations, telecommunications facilities, water treatment plants, fuel terminals, hospitals, and transportation networks. The concept often described as a survival checklist has therefore been misunderstood. The most valuable checklist is not merely a collection of equipment. Equipment matters, but equipment without timing becomes inefficient. Scientific emergency planning depends on sequencing because many resources become impossible or significantly more dangerous to obtain later. Water available now may not remain safe after treatment systems lose power or pressure. Fuel available today may become inaccessible once electrically operated pumps stop functioning or backup generators exhaust their reserves. Information available during the first hours may become fragmented after communication networks begin shutting down in stages. Batteries that seem fully charged today may represent the only source of communication several days later if recharging becomes impossible. Every decision, therefore, carries an opportunity cost measured not only in resources but also in time. Engineers often describe infrastructure using the idea of dependency layers. Electricity supports communication. Communication supports logistics. Logistics supports supply chains. Supply chains support food availability, medical distribution, industrial production, and public services. Remove electricity, and every dependent layer begins operating on borrowed time. Backup generators appear to solve this problem, but generators introduce an entirely different limitation: fuel. Hospitals, emergency operations centers, water treatment facilities, and telecommunications sites typically possess contingency plans involving diesel generators, natural gas systems, or battery storage. However, none of these systems are infinite. Fuel deliveries themselves require function.